5 Celtic plants, backed by peer-reviewed science, used by one Scottish family for 300 years, and every single one of them still works today. My name is Angus MacGregor. I am 78 years old, and I have never taken a prescription painkiller in my life. That is not a boast. It is the starting point of a question that took me decades to fully understand. Why do the plants my grandmother pressed between her palms in a cold stone kitchen in Argyll actually align with what researchers are publishing in journals like Phytotherapy Research and Frontiers in Pharmacology right now? To answer that, I reviewed more than 40 peer-reviewed studies, cross-referenced them with 2 major books on Celtic medicinal botany, including Angela Payne's exhaustive Healing Plants of the Celtic Druids, and mapped them against 3 centuries of MacGregor family practice. The stakes are real. The global herbal supplement industry is worth over $150 billion. Most products in that market are backed by nothing stronger than marketing copy. But hidden inside that noise are 5 plants with genuine, measurable, reproducible effects. Plants the ancient Celts identified through centuries of careful observation before the word pharmacology existed. These stories deserve to be heard. If you believe ancient wisdom backed by modern science matters, subscribe so you never miss a story like this. But here is what nobody in the supplement aisle tells you. 3 of these 5 plants can genuinely hurt you if you use them wrong. And the one plant most people have never heard of may be the most clinically significant of all. We will get to that hidden plant. But first, let's start with the one that already changed cardiology forever, and almost no one knows its Celtic origin. Long before cardiologists had a name for heart failure, Celtic healers in Scotland, Ireland and Wales were watching people die of something they called dropsy, a cruel swelling of the legs and abdomen caused by a heart that could no longer pump blood efficiently. And they had a plant for it. Digitalis purpurea. Foxglove, a tall, dramatic spike of purple bell-shaped flowers that grows along hedgerows and woodland edges throughout the British Isles. My grandmother called it by its Scots Gaelic name. She also told me, very clearly, never to touch it without knowing exactly what I was doing. That warning was the smartest piece of botanical education she ever gave me. In 1785, the physician William Withering documented the foxglove's use for dropsy in his landmark text, An Account of the Foxglove. Withering did not discover the plant. He learned about it from a Shropshire herbalist, a woman whose name history has mostly forgotten, who had been using it in her community for generations. What Withering did was isolate the observation, test it systematically across more than 200 patients, and publish the results. The active compound is digoxin, a cardiac glycoside that slows the heart's rate and strengthens each individual contraction. Today, digoxin derivatives are used in managing atrial fibrillation and heart failure in patients representing around 250 million people worldwide. The entire drug class traces directly back to that Celtic hedgerow plant. Now here is where the caution becomes critical. Foxglove has what pharmacologists call a narrow therapeutic index. The difference between a therapeutic dose and a toxic dose is dangerously small. Symptoms of digitalis poisoning include nausea, visual disturbances, objects appear yellow or green with halos, and ultimately fatal arrhythmia. The Celtic tradition understood this. Herbalists in the Scottish tradition never used foxglove as a casual remedy. It was a plant of last resort, prepared only by those with specific knowledge passed down through direct apprenticeship. The science confirms the wisdom of that caution completely. If foxglove is the plant that already changed cardiology, the next one on this list is the plant that may be changing neurology right now, and it grows in nearly every Scottish garden without anyone realising what it contains. Walk along almost any Scottish burn, that is the Scots word for a stream, in June or July, and you will smell meadowsweet before you see it. A heavy, sweet fragrance, almost like vanilla crossed with almonds, rising from creamy white flower clusters growing 3 feet tall along the waterline. Filipendula ulmaria. My grandmother made a tea from it when anyone in the family had a fever or a headache. She was, without knowing the chemistry, administering salicylic acid. Meadowsweet contains salicylates, the same family of compounds that Felix Hoffmann at the Bayer Company synthesized into acetyl salicylic acid in 1897. The name aspirin itself derives partly from spira, the old genus name for meadowsweet before botanists reclassified it. The world's best-selling painkiller was, in a very literal sense, named after a Celtic wildflower. But here is the clinically interesting distinction. Synthetic aspirin is famously harsh on the gastric lining. One of its most common side effects is stomach irritation and bleeding. Meadowsweet, by contrast, contains buffering compounds, including mucilage and tannins that actually protect the stomach while the salicylates do their work. Several studies, including a 2018 review published in Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine, confirmed this gastroprotective action in animal models, with human use studies showing reduced gastric irritation compared to isolated salicylic acid. The Celtic herbalists again had the right instinct. Whole plant, not isolated compound. The matrix of chemicals working together. For practical use, meadowsweet tea is prepared from the dried aerial parts, flowers and upper leaves, steeped for 10 minutes in just boiled water. Standard traditional dose is 2 to 3 cups daily for short-term fever management or mild pain relief. Because it contains salicylates, anyone with a sensitivity to aspirin should avoid it. It is also contraindicated in children under 16 for the same reason as aspirin, the risk of Ray's syndrome. Meadowsweet and foxglove give us 2 plants where the Celtic tradition was ahead of the science by centuries. The third plant on this list is different. Its clinical story is still unfolding, and the research being published right now is extraordinary. This is the plant almost nobody outside of Scotland and Ireland has heard of. And that obscurity is a genuine loss, because the emerging research on Menanthes trifoliata, bog bean, is some of the most compelling phytochemistry published in the last decade. Bog bean grows only in specific boggy terrain, the acidic, waterlogged peat bogs that define large swaths of the Scottish Highlands and the west of Ireland. It is a beautiful plant if you know where to look. 3-lobed leaves, which is where the Latin name comes from. Rising from the water on long stalks, topped with white star-shaped flowers so intricately fringed they look hand-cut. My grandmother knew every bog within 5 miles of our land, and she knew which ones had bog bean. She used it specifically for joint pain and what she called stiffness of the bones, a description that maps almost perfectly onto what we now diagnose as rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis. The active compounds identified in bog bean are a group called iridoids, specifically loganin and related glycosides, which suppress inflammatory pathways including the COX-2 enzyme that modern anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen and celecoxib also target. A 2020 paper in Frontiers in Pharmacology identified bog bean extracts as exhibiting significant inhibition of pro-inflammatory cytokines in cellular models. The mechanism is real. The target is the same one pharmaceutical companies have spent billions trying to reach. The traditional preparation in the Scottish Highlands was a cold infusion. The dried leaves steeped in cold water overnight, then taken in small amounts, typically a tablespoon 2 or 3 times a day, rather than a hot tea. This matters because bog bean in large quantities is a strong bitter and can cause significant gastrointestinal distress, including nausea and vomiting. The cold infusion method extracts the beneficial iridoids while limiting the concentration of the harsher bitter compounds. That is not folk superstition. It is practical pharmacokinetics, passed down through observation across generations. Bogbean is the hidden one. But the fourth plant on this list is almost the opposite. Universally known, chronically underestimated, and backed by a body of evidence that should have made headlines years ago. To the ancient Celts, Sambucus nigra, the elder tree, was so significant it sat at the center of an entire mythology. In Celtic tradition, cutting down an elder without asking its spirit's permission was considered an act that invited misfortune. Bogs and hedgerows throughout Ireland, Scotland and Wales were managed around the elder tree the way later generations would manage a boundary marker. The tree was not harvested. It was negotiated with. Strip away the mythology, and what you find is extraordinary pharmacology. The dark purple pigments in ripe elderberries are called anthocyanins, the same class of antioxidant compounds that nutritional researchers have been studying intensively since the 1990s. But elderberry's most clinically documented action is immunological. A 2016 randomized controlled trial published in Nutrients, conducted by researchers at the University of Sydney, gave elderberry extract or placebo to 142 air travellers for the duration of their flight. The elderberry group showed a significantly shorter duration of cold symptoms, 49% fewer sick days, compared to the placebo group. A 2004 study in Journal of International Medical Research showed that elderberry syrup reduced the duration of influenza by an average of 2 full days, with subjects reporting significant symptom relief within 24 hours. The mechanism being studied involves elderberry's ability to interfere with viral hemagglutinin, the protein spikes viruses use to attach to healthy cells, while simultaneously upregulating the body's own cytokine response during the early stages of infection. This is not vague immune support language from a supplement label. It is specific, identified, tested action. This kind of knowledge, 300 years old and now laboratory confirmed, deserves to reach more people. Subscribe and help keep this knowledge alive. Now, the safety note here is important. Raw, unripe elderberries contain sambunagrin, a cyanogenic glycoside that causes nausea and vomiting. You must use ripe berries, and you must cook or properly dry them before use. This is not optional. The traditional Scottish preparation was always a cooked syrup, berries simmered with raw honey and ginger, never raw fruit eaten directly from the tree. 4 plants down, and every one of them carries a safety dimension the supplement industry almost never mentions. The 5th plant is where this gets most complicated and most remarkable. It is also the one the pharmaceutical industry tried hardest to suppress. In the summer of 1994, a meta-analysis published in the British Medical Journal reviewed 23 randomized controlled trials, covering more than 1,700 patients. It concluded that Hypericum perforatum, St. John's wort, was significantly superior to placebo in treating mild to moderate depression, and that it performed comparably to standard antidepressants with a considerably lower rate of side effects. That study did not make the front page of any newspaper. The plant itself is unmistakable once you know it. Small yellow flowers with 5 petals, blooming from late June through August. Hold a leaf up to bright light, and you see tiny translucent dots, oil glands, scattered across the surface like puncture marks. That is exactly what the Latin name perforatum means, perforated. Celts harvested it specifically at midsummer, when the flowers peak, which we now understand is also when the concentration of active compounds is highest. The timing was not ceremonial, it was empirical. In Celtic tradition, St. John's wort was carried to protect against what the Gaelic-speaking tradition called tinnitus sinusum, literally head sickness, a category that encompassed anxiety, melancholy, and disturbed sleep. It was hung over doorways, woven into midsummer garlands, and prepared as an oil infusion applied to the back of the neck and temples. The compounds responsible for the antidepressant action are now identified: hypericin, pseudohypericin, and most critically, hyperforin, which inhibits the reuptake of serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine simultaneously. Synthetic SSRIs typically target only serotonin. Hyperforin targets 3 pathways at once. More than 30 clinical trials have now been published on St. John's wort, with the most recent systematic review in Cochrane Database of Systematic Reviews confirming efficacy for mild to moderate depression across 29 trials covering 5,400 patients. So why is it not more widely recommended? The answer to that question involves a drug interaction so significant it nearly derailed a major HIV treatment program. And it is something every person considering this plant absolutely must understand.